Can you believe Evelyn is still running that little cosmetics business? Josh's voice, thick with mockery, drifted through the walls of our bedroom. I didn't need to guess who he was talking to, Catherine, his mistress. The disdain in his tone was unmistakable, and it sent a chill down my spine. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I had known for a long time. I'm Evelyn. At 35, I had spent the past 8 years believing I was in a fairy tale marriage. Josh and I had built a life together, one without kids but filled with ambition. He was a high-powered corporate attorney, respected in his field, while I was the owner of what he so condescendingly referred to as a small cosmetics business. At least, that's what he thought. The reality? My business, Beautify, wasn't just some side project. It was a multi-million-dollar empire. Over the past 5 years, it had skyrocketed into one of the most successful natural cosmetics brands in the country. But Josh had no clue. He only ever saw the carefully curated numbers I allowed him to see, the modest figures of a single storefront, the one I used as a front. Behind the scenes, Beautify had over 200 stores nationwide, an ever-growing online presence, and was on the cusp of international expansion. Why keep it a secret? Because 3 years ago, I discovered something that shattered any illusion of love I had for Josh. While digging through legal documents, purely out of curiosity at the time, I stumbled upon disturbing patterns in his past cases. Josh had a track record of representing men in high-stakes divorces, ensuring they walked away with their wives' businesses through manipulative legal maneuvers. He knew the loopholes. Knew how to twist the system to his advantage. And worst of all, he relished it. I wasn't going to be his next victim. So I crafted a facade. I let him believe Beautify was just scraping by while, in reality, it flourished beyond his wildest imagination. I quietly built an intricate corporate structure that shielded my assets from him, hiring the best legal minds, even ones he wouldn't dare challenge. And then, just last week, I found out his latest plan. He was going to transfer ownership of my business to Catherine, his 28-year-old mistress and an attorney at his firm, no less. The arrogance was almost amusing. They genuinely thought I was clueless. She's so naive, Josh chuckled into the phone, his voice dripping with condescension. She doesn't even realize I have full legal control over her company. She signed the documents months ago without reading them. A slow smile spread across my lips, but there was no warmth in it, only satisfaction. The documents he was referring to? They were fake. Carefully constructed by my legal team, designed to give him a false sense of security while keeping the real ownership locked away where he'd never find it. I had spent years preparing for this moment. The moment of truth. Speaking of business, darling, I said, stepping into the doorway with a confidence I knew would rattle him. Josh nearly dropped his phone. His face paled as he turned to me, scrambling for composure. Evelyn. I was just talking to a client. I finished for him, raising an eyebrow. Or Catherine? He swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. I laughed softly, tilting my head. Oh, Josh, do you really think I don't know? His jaw clenched. Know what? I took a few steps forward, enjoying the flicker of fear in his eyes. About the affair. About the plan to steal my company. About your little scheme with Catherine. He stiffened. That's ridiculous. I smiled. Is it? Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Josh watched me carefully, confusion clouding his face. Evelyn, a voice answered on the other end. Rachel, it's me. Schedule a meeting for Monday at 9 a.m. Invite all the executives. It's time for the big announcement. Josh blinked. Executives? Your store only has 3 employees. I smirked. Oh, right. That's the number you know. I turned to leave, but not before pausing at the doorway. "Oh, and Josh?" He barely managed a response. "Yeah. You might want to let Catherine know she'll need to dress professionally on Monday." His brows furrowed. "Why?" I glanced back, savoring the way his face twisted in confusion. After all, it's not every day you become the owner of a $500 million company. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. "$500 million, he whispered. I pressed a hand to my chest in feigned surprise. "Oh, you didn't know? How careless of me." As I walked away, I heard the frantic sound of him dialing Catherine's number, his voice rising in panic. They thought they were setting me up. But the truth was, I had been setting them up all along. The weekend before the storm. The weekend was anything but ordinary. The tension in the house was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Josh spent nearly every waking hour locked away in his office, the door shut tight as if he could somehow keep the truth from seeping in. Occasionally, I would hear the muffled sounds of frantic phone calls, his voice rising and falling in a mix of frustration and desperation. I didn't have to press my ear against the door to know who he was talking to. Catherine. His mistress. His supposed partner in crime. The panic in his voice was unmistakable. "It can't be. She must be lying about the value. Check the public records." "How did we not notice this?" he hissed, his words laced with disbelief and fear. Meanwhile, I remained calm. I busied myself with the final preparations for Monday, ensuring every detail was in place. Unlike Josh, I had nothing to scramble for. Nothing to fix. I had been planning this moment for months. Everything was already in motion. And soon, all the pieces would fall exactly where they needed to be. The final countdown. Rachel, my executive assistant and one of my oldest, most trusted friends, had everything under control. We had been through thick and thin since our college days, and she had proven her loyalty time and time again. This time was no different. "Evelyn," Rachel said with a confident smile during our final call on Sunday night. "Everything is set. The executives from all 200 stores will be connected via video conference. The investors have confirmed their attendance, and our legal team has all the necessary documents prepared and ready to go." A slow smile spread across my face. "Perfect," I murmured, feeling the undeniable thrill of anticipation build inside me. "And what about the special surprise?" Rachel's eyes sparkled with excitement. "The Thornton Investment Board is ready to make their entrance at just the right moment." Thornton Investments wasn't just any firm. It was the largest investment group in the country, a powerhouse in the business world. We had been engaged in secret negotiations for months, discussing a multi-billion-dollar merger that would elevate Beautify to a global level. The timing of this reveal couldn't have been more impeccable. The morning of the reckoning. On Monday morning, I arrived early at Beautify headquarters. The towering, glass-encased, 30-story building stood proudly in the heart of the city's financial district, a far cry from the small, cozy storefront that Josh believed was my only business. I took a deep breath as I stepped into the elevator, the quiet hum of its ascent giving me a moment to reflect. I had built this, every floor of this building, every product that bore the Beautify name, every employee who thrived under its banner. It was all mine. Not Josh's. Not Catherine's. And most certainly not theirs to take. By 8:55 a.m., everything was set. The sleek, modern boardroom was filled with my top executives, their poised expressions betraying no hint of what was about to unfold. The video conference screens were alive with faces from every branch of the company, all eagerly awaiting the meeting that would change the course of our future. Then, right on cue, the door swung open. Josh and Catherine walked in together, their expressions carefully masked, but their eyes betraying their unease. Their gaze swept across the room, taking in the grandeur of it all, the long mahogany table, the expansive view of the city skyline, the sheer number of high-level executives in attendance. This wasn't the setting of a failing local business. I remained seated at the head of the table, exuding nothing but confidence as I greeted them. "Good morning," I said smoothly, my voice warm yet authoritative. "Josh, Catherine, please take a seat. We have a lot to discuss." Josh tried to keep his composure, but I could see the nervous flicker in his eyes as he pulled out the documents he had clung to all weekend. His hands were visibly unsteady as he placed them on the table. "I have the documents right here," he declared, though his voice lacked the certainty he likely intended. I offered him a knowing smile. "Oh, yes," I said lightly, turning to Rachel. "Rachel, would you mind?" With the press of a button, the enormous screen at the front of the room illuminated, displaying the very documents Josh held in his hands. But beside them, another set of documents appeared, the real ones. "You see," I began, my tone measured and composed, "the documents you have, Josh, are for a single store, Beautify Local Store Number 156. A modest location valued at approximately $100,000. The documents on the right, however, are for Beautify International Corporation, an entity currently valued at $500 million and set to merge with Thornton Investments for a staggering $1.2 billion. Josh's face drained of color. He looked from the screen to the papers in front of him, flipping through them frantically as if he could somehow will them to say something different. "But the documents I signed," he started, his voice trailing off in realization. I reached into my bag and retrieved a folder, placing it in front of him with a satisfying thud. "Ah, yes," I said, tilting my head as if recalling a distant memory. "The ones I supposedly signed without reading? Those were forgeries, Josh. Crafted by my legal team to test just how far you and Catherine were willing to go." "You can't prove anything," he barked, standing abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I pressed another button. The room filled with the unmistakable sound of his own voice, followed by Catherine's. Their conversations played out through the speakers for everyone to hear, every lie, every scheme, every word of betrayal. It was all there. "This is illegal," Catherine shrieked, her voice breaking under the weight of her panic. "You can't record private conversations." I met her gaze, unshaken. "Normally, you'd be right," I conceded before holding up another document. "Except when there is reasonable suspicion of corporate fraud and a judge grants permission. This court order was signed 3 months ago based on the overwhelming evidence I presented." Josh staggered back into his chair, his jaw tightening, his mind undoubtedly scrambling for a way out. But there wasn't one. "And just to make things even more interesting," I continued, a slow smile playing at my lips, "Josh, you may recall those 3 divorce cases where you helped men steal their wives' companies?" The doors opened again, and 3 women stepped inside, their presence commanding the room's attention. "Let me introduce my new business partners," I announced, my voice ringing with triumph. "After I helped them reclaim what was rightfully theirs, we decided to merge forces. Much of Beautify's recent success can be credited to their invaluable expertise." Josh looked like a man who had just lost everything. And in a way, he had. "And now," I said, shifting my attention, "it's time for the day's biggest announcement." The room fell silent as the doors opened one final time. "Good morning, everyone," came a voice that carried both power and grace. Elizabeth Thornton, the formidable CEO of Thornton Investments, strode into the room with effortless confidence. Josh and Catherine looked as though the wind had been knocked out of them. Right on time, I greeted her, my heart soaring with satisfaction. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to officially announce the merger between Beautify International and Thornton Investments in a historic deal valued at $1.2 billion. The room erupted into applause. And just like that, the tables had turned. "But before we proceed, we need to settle a small legal matter. Josh, Catherine, you have 2 options," Rachel announced, her voice calm yet firm. She moved gracefully around the table, placing 2 sets of documents in front of them. Option 1, you sign these non-disclosure agreements and waive any claims to the company, and you can leave quietly. You will retain your law licenses, although given the circumstances, I doubt any reputable firm will want to hire you once this becomes public knowledge. And option 2? Catherine asked, her voice barely above a whisper, betraying her growing fear. Option 2, you refuse to sign, and we proceed with formal charges against you both for attempted corporate fraud, conspiracy, and insider trading. I have amassed enough evidence to ensure a conviction, Rachel stated, her eyes locking onto theirs with unwavering confidence. Don't you dare. I'm your husband. Josh hissed, his eyes blazing with disbelief. His anger was barely contained, his entire body trembling with frustration. He was desperately trying to hold himself together, but it was unraveling in front of him. I held his gaze, unwavering and unfazed by his fury. He was seething, but the power had shifted. Now, I was in control. Each word I spoke was heavy with cold truth yet laced with a quiet, undeniable force. I took a measured breath before responding, my voice calm but sharp, like a blade slicing through the tension. Correction. I am your wife. You were my husband until the moment you chose to betray me. And in doing so, you forgot every vow you made. Just like that, you also forgot the ethical commitment you swore to honor in your profession. I let the words hang in the air, weighty and unyielding, before turning away. With deliberate precision, I pulled out another document and laid it flat on the table between us, letting the silence stretch. The divorce papers have already been filed, I continued, my tone laced with finality. In fact, the judge was quite interested in the evidence of your fraudulent conduct. A heavy silence settled over the room, thick with tension. I watched as the color drained from their faces, their expressions shifting from defiance to realization. The weight of their actions had finally caught up with them. My life was about to change forever, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. Elizabeth Thornton, her presence commanding as always, stepped forward. Her piercing gaze fixed on Josh. As the newly appointed majority partner of Beautify, she carried an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. Josh, she said coolly, I have a vested interest in protecting our investment. I strongly suggest you consider option 1. It is far more generous than you deserve. Josh and Catherine exchanged wary glances, the reality of their limited choices sinking in. With a defeated sigh, they reluctantly picked up their pens and signed the documents, each stroke of ink sealing their fate. Excellent decision, I said, my satisfaction evident. Rachel, ever efficient, was already at the ready to escort them out. As they shuffled toward the door, I called out, my tone light but laced with finality. Oh, and just so you know, Josh, your personal belongings are waiting for you at reception. Don't bother coming back home. As I watched them leave, Elizabeth placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Impressive how you handled all of this, she said with genuine admiration. It's going to be a pleasure doing business with you. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The news of our merger dominated headlines, sending Beautify's stock prices soaring. The company's success was undeniable, and those whom Josh had once wronged were now thriving within our organization. The 3 women he had deceived had been fully compensated and appointed to key executive roles, their expertise instrumental in Beautify's continued rise. Months later, an unexpected letter arrived for me. It was from Josh. I hesitated before opening it, curiosity momentarily outweighing my indifference. Dear Evelyn, it began. Now I understand why you kept everything a secret. I wasn't the person I pretended to be. I'm sorry. I read the words, my emotions a mixture of closure and indifference. I tucked the letter away in my desk and turned toward the panoramic view from my office window. The small cosmetic shop I had started with my savings had blossomed into a global empire. And the best part? I had built it all while staying true to my principles. "Evelyn," Rachel called out as she entered, a tablet in hand, her excitement evident. "The sales for the new quarter are in, and you won't believe it, we've exceeded all projections." A triumphant smile spread across my face. "Thank you, Rachel," I said, the pride unmistakable in my voice. "You know, sometimes the best revenge is success, served with style." That evening, I joined Elizabeth and the other executives for dinner. The atmosphere was electric with celebration. Glasses clinked in a toast, laughter filled the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely free. Elizabeth raised her glass, her voice ringing with conviction. "Here's to the small businesses that become empires. And to the men who underestimate us," I added with a smirk, my voice resonating with empowerment. "Thanks to them, we learned to be stronger." Beautify continued to thrive, but I never forgot my roots. With every new store we opened, we stayed committed to the integrity and passion that had fueled my journey from the very beginning: honest products, valued employees, and the unwavering belief that true power comes from being underestimated. As for Josh, I heard through the grapevine that he now gives talks on business ethics. The irony doesn't escape me. And as for me? Well, I'm still running my little cosmetics company. Only now, everyone knows just how big it really is. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is Revenge Scales, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.